Welcome to Spenny and the Nets, a podcast covering the Brooklyn Nets hosted by me, Spen Harris. I am joined 35% of the time today by my co-host, Nick. What's going on, brother?
Hey, brother.
This is episode 213. Could you imagine, Nick? Did you really think we'd get to episode 213 when we started this bad boy 4 years ago?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We got a lot to talk about today, and I want to start with the big fat freaking news. Did you see the bombshell today, Nick?
No.
You didn't? Really?
No, what's up?
Would you like me to tell you what the bombshell is?
Yes. Can you just say it?
Okay. The Kings are starting discussions with other teams in the league, or they're opening up discussions to trade De'Aaron Fox.
That's a bombshell of the beginning of starting of discussions.
I haven't told you what Ian Begley reported. So here's the actual update. Sham Charania tweeted, "This just in, the Sacramento Kings are expected to open up talks to potentially deal all-star De'Aaron Fox ahead of the February 6th trade deadline. Sources tell ESPN there will be plenty of suitors, but it's believed that Fox has a target destination in mind of 2026 free agency." So then my good friends Mike Bisegli and Alex Benazowitz, who host the Bad Weather podcast, they texted me an Ian Begley report, and this is where it gets interesting for the Brooklyn Nets. So the Ian Begley report says the Nets, per sources, are among the teams that view De'Aaron Fox as a trade target and have been monitoring the Fox situation in Sacramento. ESPN reports Kings are expected to listen to offers ahead of the trade deadline, but Fox is a preferred destination. He is under contract, though. So the Nets are a team mentioned in the list of suitors for De'Aaron Fox. Now, Nick, here's the connection. Where did Jordi Fernandez coach before he was in Brooklyn? Answer: Sacramento.
That's cool. I just feel like we should focus on big men and not guards.
Okay. Anything further?
No, I like De'Aaron Fox. Actually, when you said the Kings, I was really excited you were going to say Domantas Sabonis, who stars in the Netflix documentary Starting Five with Tatum and Anthony Edwards. Sabonis seems like an awesome dude. He's someone I'd want on my team, especially this Nets organization that is always starving for a better front court. With that said, De'Aaron Fox is a great player. It would be extremely exciting to see him come to Brooklyn, but if you're telling me what we have an expressed need of, I would not say De'Aaron Fox fills that gap.
Okay. Every single time De'Aaron Fox plays the Nets, he looks, quite honestly, like one of the best point guards in the league. He plays perfect basketball against us. He did it the other night when we lost at home against Sacramento 110-96, and we'll get into the last 6 games in a bit. But he just kills us. He scores at all 3 levels against us. I don't necessarily know how good he is at shooting the 3 ball against the rest of the NBA, but I feel like just every time he plays at us, he puts the ball in the basket. He's athletic. He's good at hitting angles when he drives to the rim. He's got a decent pull-up game. He's almost like, I don't want to compare him to James Harden because he's not as pure of a scorer, but there's a certain smoothness to De'Aaron Fox's game that reminds me a little bit of a young Harden. Now, here's the controversy, because I personally would love De'Aaron Fox, but if you trade for De'Aaron Fox and he starts winning you ball games, like, I wouldn't give up the tank to acquire De'Aaron Fox. I still want one of those top 3, top 4 picks. So then it becomes sort of a controversy. Is Sean Marks moving away from the tank too fast by acquiring someone like De'Aaron Fox? And are you sort of skipping? Are you not seeing out the process as it was intended to be seen out?
No, it's a shortcut. It's an exciting opportunity presents itself, and instead of thinking strategically, you think impulsively. And we're stuck with a better D'Angelo Russell. We're stuck with a better Spencer Dinwiddie.
Are you really comparing De'Aaron Fox to D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie? Are we actually going there?
I'm saying he's better than both of them. But if you're telling me that's going to thread the needle, if that's going to jumpstart this organization, we've played with just having really good point guards. You can call De'Aaron Fox better than everybody we've had in that position, since Kyrie or Harden, right? And by the time we had Harden, he was coming out of his prime. So I would say De'Aaron Fox was still better than the Harden we had his last couple of years in Brooklyn. But I don't know if I would call De'Aaron Fox better than Kyrie his last couple of years in Brooklyn. Kyrie still was and still is balling at an extremely high level. So if that wasn't solving the issue we were having, I'm not convinced this will. So, like you said, I agree. We should not be giving up too much in terms of picks and trade assets for him if we're able to parlay this into getting De'Aaron Fox and somehow getting a top 5, top 10 big man pick in the draft, trading for another top 5, 10 big man in the league. Now we're building a combination of two players that I could see jumpstarting an organization. Without that, if you're expecting Fox to play with Sharp, to play with Clowney, to play with Claxton, and that have a significant impact, I'm just not buying it.
I think that's completely fair. If I were the Nets and you're going to make this trade, I would try to sit him out for the rest of the year and just see if he can ride the bench and give him a bunch of DNPs or come up with some bullshit injury so he doesn't play, tank the rest of the year, draft someone high, make a move in the offseason. That's what I would do if I were Sean Marks. Now, Fox's stats this year, he's averaging 25.2 points per game. That's up there. 6.2 assists per game, 5.0 rebounds per game, 1.5 steals per game. 47% from the field, and here's his downfall, 32% from three, which is terrible for a guard. Now, it's funny because I said he always kills us. Look at the last 3 games, right? 3-point percentage against Denver, 30%, 17 points. Against the Knicks, 33%, 14 points. Against the Nets, 57% from three, 30 points. He just kills the Nets. I can't explain it.
Well, if he could play for the Nets as good as he plays against the Nets.
That would be the goal. Specifically, he was 4-7 from three in their win yesterday, in the Kings win. And if you're the Kings and you trade him, you're losing Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox within like 5 years of each other. That's crazy to me. Those are two of the top 10 point guards in the league that you just decided to move on from. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I agree.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about the current status of the Brooklyn Nets. Nick, we did not record a podcast last week. I recorded a show the week prior, so a lot has happened. Here's the current status of the Nets. Bad. They're a bad basketball team. Okay? Specifically, let's look at the last 6 games for Brooklyn. These are the 6 games that we have not covered because the podcast before that, they went 1-4. And the last game that we talked about was the loss against the Clippers, which they lost by 59 points. So since that Clippers game, Nick, at the Lakers, loss 102-101. At the Thunder, loss 127-101. Home against the Knicks, loss 99-95. Mikal did not play great in that game. Home against Phoenix, loss 108-84. Home against Miami, loss 106-97. Home against Sacramento, loss 110-96. Nick, they are 0-6 in their last 6 games. They are 1-10 in their last 11 games. And for all those supporters of the tank, which, let's face it, is more than 90% of us, they are now 5th in the Tankathon sweepstakes. According to the official Tankathon Twitter, they are 5th just behind the Wizards, the Utah Jazz, the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Charlotte Hornets. And guess who we play tomorrow night? The Charlotte Hornets. And you can get tickets as low as $3 according to ESPN.com.
That's a good deal. I might even go to that. Yeah, the tank
it's in Charlotte.
Well, I'm going to Charlotte. Me and my buddies are road tripping tomorrow morning, driving down to Charlotte to watch this Hornets-Nets game. Yeah, the tank's in full effect. It was looking shoddy there in the beginning of the season when we started to win. I was like, wow, this is crazy. We're winning games. They were like, just kidding. We're not going to win anymore. The 19.5 over-under on the season was looking like the biggest sure thing money could buy, because I'm gonna put a ballpark number, but they were what at one point, like 9-12. There was at one point where they were almost batting 500, and their wins were in the teens or near the teens. And now, if you look at what is this, what's their most recent record? Is it 13-33?
Let me look. The Nets sit 14-33.
33. So 14-33, 37, 47. I mean, they're going to cut this close if they continue to lose at this level. If 19.5 is the target, it's definitely doable. But games I thought were very winnable in the past 2 to 3 weeks are all of a sudden out of reach. So this will be interesting how the season plays out from a purely betting perspective on those who took that season over under. With that said, from just the perspective of wanting to rebuild, restructure, and succeed at a faster pace than we have in the past, this tank is looking successful thus far.
I counted 36 games left, so they'd have to win more than 6 to cover that over, correct?
Right. And that would, and if they were 1-11, 1-10 in their last 33 games, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, let's give credit to the Nets for tanking. Nick, how are they doing it? How is this team losing every single basketball game? Well, let's go through some of the reasons why they're so stinky. Not missing shot. You ready? Here's where it starts. They are missing shots. It starts with the fact that nobody is playing. Nick, who do you think the most consistent guys are on the Brooklyn Nets in terms of just seeing the court?
Clowney.
No, not really, no.
Sharp.
This shows how much you watch Nets basketball. Nick,
Jordy Fernandez.
The most consistent guys, just in terms of being out there, are Keon Johnson, Jalen Wilson, and Tyson Awuma. Tosan Awuma. I got to get used to saying that name. Those are the 3 most consistent guys. You can say Claxton. Claxton hasn't missed a lot of games, so I guess he'd be the 4th guy, but he's also having a terrible season. Nobody's playing. Like Tosan Awuma and Keon Johnson, love their effort. Those guys are historically G League players. Jalen Wilson, 2nd-round pick out of Kansas last year. Not showing me a ton this season. You know, he has not been that dude. And he hasn't really improved. He can't shoot the 3. He really has no offensive moves. He has one where he goes to the basket and kind of like sort of shuffles his feet and banks it in, and it's not a travel. It's kind of like a walking layup, but he's been pretty bad this season. But in terms of like who's not playing, no Cam Johnson. He's been out. He might not ever play for the Nets again if he gets traded before the deadline. D'Angelo Russell's been banged up. He plays every other game. No Cam Thomas, no Ben Simmons, no Trendon Watford. He's returning soon. Bogdanovich probably won't suit up for the Nets ever. I think he gets bought out or moved, or I don't think he has any interest in playing for this team. And then Noah Clowney just got hurt again. He's been in and out of the lineup. He's shown flashes this year, but injuries have kind of set him back. So that's where we are right now.
That's not how you win basketball games.
And that's your goal. So technically you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, within this tank, I talked a little bit about what we're learning, about Jalen Wilson. Not sure he's an NBA guy. Noah Clowney has shown flashes. He can hit the 3. He's still a little bit raw. He's got a ton of room to improve. Something that I've learned from, what do you say?
You said he's pretty raw. I said he could do some cooking.
Or maybe just, I guess cooking so he's not raw, so he gets cooked.
Yes.
How do you like your steak done?
Medium rare.
Medium rare, not raw.
Correct.
Okay. Some other things we're learning about this team, Nick. Day'Ron Sharpe, he might be better than Nick Claxton overall.
That's really sad.
This season, Nets fans, I think, and comment if you disagree, but Sharpe looks like he has more of a positive impact on the game than Claxton does. Offensively, he's better on the boards, definitely offensive boards. I think defensively too. And then in terms of his defense, he's tough. He bangs. Sharpe doesn't make a lot of stupid plays. Claxton has the flagrants. He has the technicals. Sharp doesn't do any of that. Sharp just works hard. Now, offensively, they're both limited, but Sharp has shown he can hit the hook shot a little bit. He's willing to take that three. He hit a three the other night. There's a little bit more that I've seen from Day'Ron Sharp this year that would make me feel more comfortable if the Nets were to move on from Claxton before the deadline or trade him in the offseason. That's what I've learned this year.
I say you dump them all, get rid of every single big man we have, and rebuild.
Interesting. Get rid of all of them. What about Tosan Awuma?
There's no one promising. I mean, I see Clowney at times, but I wouldn't even call him really a 5. He's like a stretch 4. You're like literally just scraping at the bottom of the barrel now. Like comparing like who are we gonna start? Day'Ron Sharp or Nick Claxton? It's like, oh, what am I gonna get for lunch? Like McDonald's or Burger King. Like I want Capital Grill, you know what I'm saying? Like I want the best possible steakhouse. I don't want a fast food burger, bro. Del Frisco's, Peter Luger's. Impress me.
Okay, I mean, you can't get rid of everyone on the team. You have, sometimes, yeah, Del Frisco's, Peter Luger's is great, but sometimes you got to eat McDonald's or Burger King. Sometimes you go Wendy's.
I like Wendy's more than the other two.
Yeah, Wendy's is better. And then finally, in terms of just like what I've learned as I've been watching these games, and mind you, Nets fans, I watch every single game. I watched the entire game we lost by 59 to the Clippers. I watch every blowout. I watch till triple zeros hit because I want to see how this team handles losing and how they handle adversity. But in terms of them going out there and tanking and, they know they're going to be at the bottom of the NBA at the end of the year, you see a lot of individual guys that are more focused on their performance and just they want to get jobs in the NBA, right? I mentioned Tosan Awuma. I mentioned Keon Johnson. These G League guys want to get permanent NBA contracts. So what you're seeing is a lot of me ball in these games. You're seeing whether it's, like I said, Awuma, Keon, Zaire Williams, Jalen Wilson, Noah Clowney. A lot of guys are looking to get theirs when they touch the ball.
It's tryouts.
It's tough.
It's tryouts. You're putting a bunch of players on a really bad team that have no longevity, no promise for success there. Let's be honest, they probably wouldn't be getting any playing time on most other teams in the league, maybe 5 or 6 total. So can you blame them? I understand it's bad from an organizational standpoint, but can you blame someone for saying, oh shit, I'm getting 20 minutes now. When I was on the Pistons, I was getting 2. If I prove that I could play somewhat competent basketball, this team might sign me, another team might sign me. You really don't care at that point. So right now, all we are is a team of kind of a scramble of assets where we're deciding what's valuable to us, but they're trying to prove they're valuable to everybody else in the league. So there really is no way right now to build any sort of longevity or have a cohesive lineup out there.
I think that's fair. I think it is tryouts. And really what you can see is when there's no D'Lo or Ben Simmons on the floor, it's kind of a free-for-all, this offense. You have no game manager. You have no real ball handlers out there. Keon Johnson, actually, Cam Johnson's probably the next best ball handler, and that's not a strength of his game. Keon Johnson brings the ball up a lot. You see Tosan Awuma kind of playing a point forward at times, but you really don't have another point guard outside of D'Lo and Ben, and Ben has been out as of late. In terms of what I want to see for the rest of the season, here's what I want to see, Nick. I want to see more of Zaire Williams. I feel like since he's been back from injury, he's kind of taken a back seat to guys like Jalen Wilson, guys like Tosan Awuma. I want to see Zaire Williams be more involved in this offense. What else do I want to see? I want to see Ben Simmons come back and try to lead this group in the second half of the season. I think when he's out there with these guys, he makes the game a little bit easier. Maybe they lose by 10 instead of 20, or maybe it's a closer game, but I just want to see Ben Simmons play basketball for the Nets. And then after the season, I would like to wash my hands clean of him and he can go play somewhere else. I think that the Ben Simmons experiment in Brooklyn is finished after this year, but I want to see him play again. And then finally, I don't want to see too much more of Cam Johnson or D'Angelo Russell in Nets jerseys if it means we're going to win a lot of games. Okay, if Cam's out and D'Lo plays a lot, but we still lose, I'm okay with that. But I do not want to put ourselves in a position not to have a high lottery pick. And then the last thing I want to see is I want to see De'Aaron Fox in a Nets uniform.
That'd be fun.
All right. Is there anything you wanted to see, or pretty much you just agree with me on all mine?
I agree, but I still believe De'Aaron Fox is a very small piece of a much larger puzzle.
Okay. All right. All right. Next up, I wanted to talk about not a Brooklyn Net, but a New Jersey Nets legend, Vince Carter. VC 15 had his jersey retired on Saturday against the Heat. And I just got to say, Nick, the Brooklyn Nets went all out for this. Okay, this was probably the highlight of the Nets season. So they spent about 45 minutes at halftime honoring Vince Carter. Dr. J was there, who happens to be Vince Carter's hero and a former Net. All his old teammates were there. And by old teammates, we're talking Bobby Simmons. We're talking Boston Nakbar, former guest of the show. Shout out to Boki. We're talking Devin Harris, Nenad Kristich, Josh Boone, and Antoine Wright. Those were his teammates there. Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson sent some really nice video tributes that I enjoyed watching. And it was, for the most part, Nick, I loved it. It was awesome. Now, I do have a little constructive criticism. It ran a little bit long. Okay? It just did.
Well, they know the game is going to be so uninteresting that they have to make the pre-game stuff more exciting.
That's fair. I mean, Miami beat us with no Jimmy Butler, 106-97. It wasn't much of a game. But it's funny because, like, okay, on one hand, Vince Carter was one of the most athletic, exciting, just greatest players to ever put on a New Jersey Nets uniform. In person, you and I were at the games. He was electric. Nobody, not even Kenyon Martin, could dunk like Vince Carter could dunk. He just had this uncanny ability to just have your jaw drop every single time he scored the basketball. Now, he was only in Brooklyn for, I want to say, 4 to 5 years, right? And I'm going to look up his basketball reference just to make sure, but it's not like he was there for the longest time. Now,
04 to 09 or something.
Let's see. I'm gonna tell you right now. He was in Brooklyn. Oh, he's in New Jersey from 04 to 09. Yeah, you're right. And then in the 09 season, he got traded to Orlando. So he was only there for 5 years. That's number one. Number two, his best years were in Toronto. Like, Vince Carter is known as a Raptor to the general fan base, not necessarily as a Net. Number three, the Vince Carter teams weren't as good. I'm sorry, the Vince Carter, Jason Kidd teams were not as good as the two finals teams prior. They just weren't. So that's number three. And number four, if the Nets weren't absolute ass this season, there's no way this would have been promoted and valued as much as it was. It is just no way. Like, if they were winning basketball, this is a 15-minute ceremony at halftime. Because they're so good, they needed to sell tickets, and they needed to make this like the event of the century, which they kind of tried to make it seem like that.
I don't think they would have retired Vince Carter's jersey to salvage ticket sales for one crappy season. I don't think they would have just been like, oh shit, let's retire this guy's jersey because
I'll guarantee that game did better than any other game for them.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But to retire someone's jersey, I would like to think there is a process, there is a discussion, and they really come to the conclusion that this person had a big impact on an organization overall. Whether that was wins, whether that was entertainment, whether that was, an era of making Vince Carter kind of an icon in New Jersey, bringing him from Canada. And I will say, you're right, towards the end of his career in Toronto, he was at his peak. But when he came to New Jersey, he was still at his peak career. He was still in his prime for a couple more seasons. I will say his candle started to fade out in New Jersey. And then once he got traded away, he really hit that second half of his career as kind of an older veteran role player. But those first couple years in New Jersey, he was as big as he was in Toronto, if not bigger, because he was doing it in the U.S. to a broader audience. I really enjoyed watching this tribute. I really enjoyed watching Vince Carter's press conference talking about how important this and how much this meant to him. You mentioned Dr. J was his icon. He called Dr. J to see if Dr. J would have his back on this event in his life of retiring his jersey, of being there, and he got emotional talking about how Dr. Shea said, "Absolutely, I have your back 100%. This is amazing." And going from having someone who played for the Nets be your icon to being there watching your jersey as a Net get retired up in the rafters next to your icon, watching VC get emotional about it. I got emotional about it. Say what you will about VC's career with the Nets from just a success standpoint, having him as a Net, we remember having season tickets, how freaking huge and awesome it was that a star of his caliber was coming to New Jersey to team up with Jason Kidd, to team up with this team that, yes, had made it to shoot 2 ships before he got there, but still hadn't won a ship. So although he didn't bring us to the promised land, there was hope and there was electricity. And when he hit a 3 and Ian Eagle said VC3, I mean, that place erupted, and I will never forget that.
That's a VC3. Yeah, man. It was those were good times. Did you come with me and Dad to the NBA store to meet Vince Carter and get his jersey?
Yeah, you and I both got interviewed. We were both on TV.
Yeah, I said it was the greatest day of my life to NBC. And then the anchor, whoever it was, he goes, I guess he liked it.
That's pretty good.
That reminded me of one of the calls whenever Mikey Moore scored. Be like, Mikey likes it. You remember that?
No.
I think that was an Iron Eagle call. That was great. You remember Mikey Moore?
Vaguely.
He was the center. He was like either right before or right after Christich. All right, Nick. This next segment is called Would You Rather? Given the status of the Brooklyn Nets' future, obviously they have high draft picks. You know, they have a ton of first-round picks, and they have a ton of cap space in the net. You know, I think 2026 they have a ton of cap space. I'm going to name a few teams, and I want you to tell me if you would rather be the Nets or this team. Are you ready? And this is not. I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about the future. Okay, let's say next 5 years. Washington Wizards.
Nets.
New Orleans Pelicans.
Pelicans.
Why?
I mean, a lot of assets there. Ingram, Zion, McCollum. Don't they have DeJounte Murray now?
They do have Murray. Yeah, you're right. They have Trey Murphy too.
I mean, just talking about players that you could move for a lot value-wise.
Okay, so you'd rather New Orleans, Miami Heat.
Miami. I love Miami Heat. They're so fun to watch. I think Jaquez is going to be a star.
Chicago Bulls.
Us. I think the Bulls are just a terribly run organization. They've been in the shitter since Derrick Rose, and they get all these like C plus B minus stars and make that their big 3, and they never have good seasons.
Got it. Okay. What about the Charlotte Hornets?
I'll say Nets. The Hornets are always bad. I do think the Hornets have some better young talent right now, but I don't have any faith in the Charlotte Hornets. A really small market team. I feel like in general we're a better trade destination. We're a more marketable destination for a lot of players.
Okay. What about the Golden State Warriors?
Is that a joke?
It's not. In terms of the next 5 years.
Warriors. Why would you not? Who would rather be the Nets than the Warriors? That's like saying McDonald's versus Del Frisco's.
What about the Portland Trailblazers?
Nets. Blazers just have nothing left.
What about the Atlanta Hawks?
Oh, I'd probably take the Nets over the Hawks too. You're talking about teams that just like no matter what you do around the few players they have, still can't find success. I like Trae Young. I like watching Trae Young. I don't think Trae Young will win a championship on the Hawks. I think he'll get older and have to be like a Westbrook latching on to a team where he has a smaller, diminished role. And even Westbrook still can't find that team.
All right, 2 more. The Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, probably the greatest run franchise of the last 10 years. The Oklahoma City Thunder, on paper, should be good for 15 years, should win 3 to 5 championships. I don't know if they will, but that's like asking if I'd rather chew on a rock or go to the Ritz Hotel.
I don't know, man. I think I'd rather be the Nets. And then the last one, New York Knicks.
The Nets, and I don't want any follow-up questions.
You're not going to receive any. All right, 2 more quick segments. The first is, did you see? So, Nick, did you see the Duke big man, Kaman Mualach, throw up in the middle of the game?
I like that you're assuming it's a Hebrew pronunciation, and no, I did not.
Check your phone. It's an 8-second video. It's pretty good. JBR Bracketology tweeted the video and wrote, I've watched a lot of college basketball in my life and can never remember a time a player spontaneously threw up all over the court the way Duke center Kaman Maluach just did.
Did they say he was just fatigued? Did he eat right before the game?
Dude, I have zero idea, but
that reminds me when you and I were playing AAU basketball. We played a team at the JCC in Paramus, and I have similar thing where a player just threw up in his hands and looked at the ref, and the ref was like, "Get the hell out of here," and clean that up. And this guy looks like he tried to keep it in his hands and immediately had way too much vomit. I'm sorry, nobody watched this. Nobody Google this. You don't need to see this. That was revolting.
All right. And the last segment of the show, it's going to be, do the Nets trade for De'Aaron Fox, yes or no? I need an answer.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I think so too. I had another segment idea. It was stupid. I don't want to do it. I had a note with a ton of ideas, and it was going to be I pitch you ideas, because for those who don't know, Nick is a director. He's a writer. He's an actor. He's all of the above. So I had some ideas, but then I realized I actually just wrote a script for a TV show. Not a script. I wrote an outline for a TV show, and it's very in depth. And I didn't feel like reading it on the podcast, not because I think it's bad, but because I don't want anyone to steal my show ideas.
Great idea.
Right. So I just want to keep that, I'll tell you off camera, off podcast. But yeah, listen, we're approaching the end of January. We have, I think, 36 games left in the season. Hasn't been fun, but this is what the NBA is now. Okay. As a Nets fan, you just have to hold on. It's like, imagine you're on the worst bus ride of your life, and you got to go cross country. And the bus is dirty. There are people that are coughing everywhere and staring at you, and you're just freaking nauseous, and you have terrible snacks, and the experience is just horrible. But when you get to your destination, it is going to be like El Dorado. It's just going to be like freaking the craziest, most amazing scene you've ever seen. Beautiful beaches, blue ocean, blue skies, the best food you've ever had, the most beautiful people you've ever seen in your life just going up to you, interacting with you. And as a Nets fan, that is what you are hoping for. That's what we are waiting for. So hold on. We're going to lose probably 30 out of the next 36 games. Maybe we'll get to 18, 19 wins on the season. And that's it. We'll tune in next week for another episode of Spenny and the Nets.
Peace.
Bye-bye.